good listening comprehension. So we'll practice this again. We'll do another one of these exercises next week because I think it's good. You can do this yourself. You can do this yourself. A movie on Netflix or something, where you can watch the movie and then go back and play the scene over again, if you didn't quite hear it. If you go to the movies at a theater, you don't get to turn the movie back. But if you rent a movie on Netflix or just rent it at a video store, then you can hear the dialogue back and forth. But sometimes movies are difficult because there's a lot of background noise, and this website that I'm using to give you these listening exercises is also something you can do on your own for practice. And before I leave, I'll make sure that you have that website address. So, well, let's return to Slumdog Millionaire and see how this book is different from the movie that we saw, okay? So let's, when we stopped reading, we were on page 60, starting with chapter 9. And let's see. You will need a copy too. Can you get two copies, or three copies? Now, remember where we were. He shot a man in Mumbai. The father of his girlfriend, Gudia, you remember that? And then he had to leave Mumbai because he was afraid he would get in trouble. He ended up going to Delhi. And then when he was working as a servant at the diplomat's house, Colonel Taylor. It turned out, all these things befall poor Ram. Colonel Taylor turned out to be a spy. And so the Indian government sent Colonel Taylor back to Australia. He was out of work again. But he had money because he had back pay from Colonel Taylor. So he got on a train and wanted to go back to see his friend, Salome. Well, he gets robbed. And then the robber is getting ready to shoot him. He turns the gun on. And the robber actually shoots himself. Well, Ram is afraid to try to explain this to the police, so he jumps off the train. Where he jumped off the train was in Agra, which is where the Taj Mahal is. So that's where we pick up the story. He's at the Taj Mahal, but now doesn't have any more money. So he's got to find a way to earn money. Now I want you to try to listen or to detect how this explanation of what happens in the Taj Mahal is different from the scene in the movie. Okay, we'll compare the two scenes. So let's start with at the beginning of chapter 9, and why don't we? Would we start with you, Paramahansa Suraphet? Do you have? Oh. Yeah, we can just pass the book. We can pass the book around, and we'll go around the room. Okay, starting at chapter 9.
Chapter 9. A love story. After 2 hours, I left Agra railway station and began to walk through the crowded street. After a time, I came to a river. On the opposite side, there was a large white building. It was the largest and most beautiful building I had ever seen. Excuse me, I said to the man who was stood near me, what is that building? He looked at me strangely. Don't you know? He said, it's the Taj Mahal. A walk of 30 minutes brought me to the entrance. A large white sign read Taj Mahal entry prices. Indian SR 20 rupees. Rupees. 20 rupees. Foreigner $20. Mondays closed, Fridays free. Today was Friday, the 12th of June. It seemed that today was my lucky day.
The Taj Mahal was full of people, young and old, rich and poor, Indian and foreigner. I saw a group of foreign tourists listening to a guide. I will tell you the story of the Taj Mahal. We was seeing one day in the year 1607. Prince Kalam fell in love with a girl and called Mumtaz. They was married in the years 1612, and over the next 18 years they had 14 children. He continued to speak for some time. Then the group moved on. I was about to go with them when someone said, "Excuse me, can you speak English?"
I turned round to see a man with his wife and two children staring at me. Yes, I replied. Please can you tell us a little about the Taj Mahal? He asked. We are tourists from Japan. We are new to your city. We arrived today.
Go ahead, Ben.
Like telling him that I was also new to this city, but I like his face. The Taj Mahal was built by Emperor Khurram for his wife Mumtaz, who he married in 1512. I said, they had 18 children in 14 years. The Japanese man said, 18 children in only 40 years. Yes, he says. Anyway, when the 19 children was born, Mumtaz said, but before she died, she asked the emperor to build the Taj Mahal. I talked for 5 minutes. When I had finished, the Japanese man thanked me and he put something into my hand. When he moved away, I saw that it was a 15 rupee note. 50 rupee notes for just 5 words.
Very good. So he realizes that he can make money by being a tour guide, except he got the story all wrong. You know, they married in 1612, but he said 1512. They had 14 children in 18 years, but he said 18 children in 14 years. But what does he care? You know, he got 50 rupees out of the deal. One thing I want to call your attention to, the word read, R-E-A-D, the past tense is read, R-E-A-D. The spelling is the same, but we pronounce the past tense differently than the present tense. And the only way we know which is present tense and which is past tense, because the words are spelled the same, is by context. So we got to, be careful with that. Well, where it starts with, it was getting dark. Would you continue reading for us, please?
It was getting dusk when I left the Taj Mahal. I had to find a place to stay. So I stopped a young boy in the street. He was about my age. Excuse me, I said. The boy turned and looked at me with the kindest eyes I have ever seen. I'm new to this city. Can you show me the place to stay? The boy knows his head and said, how to...
Okay, let me interrupt you here. These are just like non-words. They're not English words at all. They're not Hindu words, any kind of words. We will find out in a couple of paragraphs that the boy has an impairment. He's mentally, Ram thinks that he's mentally handicapped, so he has what we would call a language disorder. And so he's just making sounds, but they're not actual words that mean anything. Okay, so when we get to these words like that, we can just skip over those. Don't try to pronounce those. There's no way to pronounce them.
I say, I don't understand this other language. I will ask someone else. They